Okay, we are live and I'll let everybody else in.
Excuse me.
Okay, we are live. Okay, we are good to go.
Okay, so I will call this meeting to order at 7:01. So here at the table tonight, we have all of our full council, which is great, as well as our CAO, Diane Monberquette, and Mike Blaschuk. We are going to start by appointing our new corporate officer. So I'm going to make the motion that Lisa Storoshenko be appointed as corporate officer in accordance with section 148 of the community charter. Seconded, Thomas. Thank you. All those in favor? And carried. Great. So I want to begin by acknowledging that we're meeting this evening on the traditional and unceded territory of the Ntlaka'pam people. And we are committed to working with our First Nation neighbors on whose territory we reside. A motion to adopt tonight's meeting agenda.
So move Lightfoot.
Seconder?
I'll second.
Second, and all those in favor? Carried. Now the adoption of minutes for the regular council meeting held on October 11th. Motion?
Also move.
Thank you. Seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none. All those in favor? And carried. So we're going to move right on to item number 6, which is public comment. I'm going to turn it back over to CO Storoshenko.
All right, so this is the members of the public are now invited to comment on matters related to the agenda. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. You can find that by clicking on reactions at the bottom of your screen and then click raise hand. When it's your turn, I'll read your name and we will ask you to unmute yourself. You'll get a pop-up on your screen asking you to unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. So please state your name and address. So if anyone would like to speak, please raise your hand now. I have Rachel who would like to speak. So go ahead, Rachel.
Hello. Rachel Zimmerman, owner 250 First Street. I would like to speak about agenda item number 7.4, zoning bylaw parking requirements. My comments are relating to parking and specifically Lytton's many half-sized, very small parking lots. And I just wanted to urge you that when you're writing these bylaws, to please include these lots that we already know exist so that bylaws clearly lay out what is permitted for smaller lots rather than us having to hope that we'll get a development variance permit 3 to 6 months and many dollars down the road. The bylaws relating to on-site parking should automatically include an allowance that the tiny half-sized lots in town have an exemption from requiring on-site parking. It's already challenging to design everything for these properties, and especially when many properties are having to account for untouchable archaeological areas, etc. So just don't forget the tiny lots, and please include us in the bylaws and let us know how you're imagining the bylaws apply to the smaller lots. I know that one of the things that is also being considered is payment in lieu of parking. And I wanted to state that I'm against this for small lots. Most of us would choose to have on-site parking if it was possible, but in many cases, it's just not an option for the small lots. That's it.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? If you do, please raise your hand. Use the raise hand function. I don't see anybody else. I'll call again. If anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand function. All right, I don't see anyone else that wants to speak. Is there anyone at Parish Hall that wishes to speak, Your Worship?
Not this evening, thank you.
Okay, and so that concludes our public comment portion of the meeting.
Thank you. So we'll move on to item number 7, which is staff reports, and the first one from our CAO regarding Village of Lytton permanent office.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. This report is seeking direction from council to begin discussions with the Thompson Regional District about the former site of the Village Hall at 380 Main Street. So the village had been renting that property from the TNRD for many, many years. I don't have the exact number of years, approximately 20. And as part of our former lease with the TNRD, we did have an option to take over ownership of that space after a certain amount of rent had been paid. The idea being, once we had paid for the cost of the space, it would be transferred to the village. Now, unfortunately, the fire happened in the meantime. Before that had finished, we were probably within 5 years of having that space transferred to us. So I just had some very preliminary discussions with the CAO of the TNRD, and they are interested in having some discussions about, how we move forward on that property. Do we, what that might look like, who owns the land, who owns the building, who constructs, everything is kind of open for discussion. And I would say in that preliminary discussion, there is recognition of that former relationship that we had. So, at this time, I'm just looking for some direction from council to be able to go and have those discussions and bring options for consideration at a later time.
Thank you. We have a two-part recommended motion here. We would like to read and put that. Councillor Lightfoot.
I move that council direct the chief administrative officer to begin discussions with the TNRD to come to an agreement on cost, funding, and timeline associated with the rebuilding of the Village of Lytton offices in its former location, and that council direct the chief administrative officer presents council with options for their consideration.
Okay, thank you. A seconder?
I'll second that. And can we make it a little more, we were trying to say there?
Yeah.
Council direct the chief administrative officer to present council with options for their consideration, right? To present. And that's my seconding.
All right, thank you. So we have a seconder. So are there any questions or comments? So all those in favor of this amended motion? Carried, thank you. So on to item number 2, 1.2, no, I don't. 1.2, next generation 911 funding agreement.
And this is an item that had just come up, so it was late getting into the package, but we have received approval from UBCM for a grant of $45,000 to contribute to kind of next generation 911 readiness. So the entire system is being overhauled across the country. There's going to be infrastructure and network investments made. We're not going to be involved in any of that. This is more along the lines of just ways to make sure that the community is ready to take advantage of the new system when after the investment happens. So as I list there in the report, things like public education, around making sure that your house is identifiable and those types of things that we've heard before. Whether or not we may have some legal or contract costs related to migrating to the system, including some service provider agreements or something like that. mapping, GIS, that type of thing, and training for the local fire department. So it's on a reimbursed basis, although we do receive 50% of it upon signing the agreement. We are expected to submit a final report, and yeah, the costs are covered 100%, up to $45,000.
Great, thank you. We have a recommended two-part motion. We would like to make that.
I'll read that one.
Thank you.
Move that council approve the UBCM funding agreement for Next Gen 911 funding in the amount of $45,000, and the council authorize the chief administrative officer to sign the agreement.
A seconder. Councilor Michelle, and are there any questions or comments for Theo Monaco? I think it's pretty straightforward. Thank you very much. All those in favor? Carried. So on to Chief Financial Officer report, and we're going to turn it back to CFO Margaret.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. Lisa, can you pull up my presentation, please? Have that handy. So this presentation is for council's information, and it's a September 30th financial report. So we have taken the results to the end of September, and we've compared them to the budget that was passed in preparation for the property taxes back in the spring, and made a few comments about some of the variances that we found. So the presentation is just around, we're going to do a bit of a summary, some of the key variances. Let's talk a little bit about the major recovery funding sources, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. So
let's put the motion on the floor
Do you want motion?
for receiving this.
After we see the.
Sorry, we'll do the.
Stop now.
We'll do the presentation first.
I was hoping there was more than that.
Next slide, please, Lisa. So just a couple of highlights that are kind of happening in the financial area. I mean, our December 31st, 2022 audit is still ongoing. That's not because there's any problems with it. It's a staffing issue on the part of the auditors. We were just been, working with them to try to kind of get that finished up. So what that means is one of the things that's not included in this report that I would typically report would be reserve balances. But until I get the closing numbers for December 2022, I can't update them for the 2023 transactions. So when we get those, I'll bring that back to council in a separate report, just so that you can see how much we have kind of tucked away in the reserves. Just an important note that the operations budget is supplemented with our $700,000 grant that was provided by Municipal Affairs, so $700,000 per year. And on the expense side, we're under in some areas, we're over in others. I'll highlight some of the key variances coming up just so that you can see where that's been happening. And just to note that, some of our staff are they're returning to some of those typical kind of municipal activities that maybe we hadn't really been doing since the fire, but we are seeing some increased expenditures because of that. But you'll see that comment come up. So just an overall summary, and this doesn't really mean a lot at this time of year, but right now, our total revenue to date is 1.8 million. Our expenses are just over 800,000, and we've got an excess of 972,000. This tends to mean more when you look at it on an annual basis, because in the year, or during the year, there's a number of factors contributing to these numbers and what's not here yet. So next one, Lisa. So on the revenue side, our property taxes were on budget because our property taxes are set based on our budget. Better be on budget. Our government grants, we've got a couple of additional grants that have come up. For example, the Municipal Affairs had contributed $50,000 for, so we call it council support, but it was strategic planning, code of conduct, some training that we had done. So those things weren't in the original budget. We actually have a kind of a negative variance of the 700,000 because we hadn't recorded it yet. But when we were doing the analysis, we made that adjustment, but it's showing as not being there. And then on the sale of services side, we had a couple of things happening. Number one, we kind of budgeted for all the building permits to come in this year, and as we know, they're going to be delayed. So that revenue is not there. And then When we billed for the fire protection services that we provided in the summer, we had a revenue line item for them, but instead we coded them as an offset to salaries. So we have sort of a shortage on the revenue side and we have an overage on the expense side, but we've since corrected it, so it's on the proper line. But in the financial information that is in the package, you'll see that difference. So. Next one, please. The investment income, that we continue to have some money invested there, so that's a good thing. With the investment income, we do need to make some allocations for the investment income that relates to recovery funding. It needs to go to recovery. That's kind of one of the stipulations in the agreement. So that's just a little bit of accounting that we need to do there. The other income, we've received insurance proceeds for the debris removal on the village properties. So that's sitting in other income. That really should be allocated into the debris removal fund with everybody else's insurance proceeds. So we'll be making that adjustment. And then the water and sewer is showing a shortage only because we've only got 2 quarters posted at September 30th. And we just did 3rd quarter billing. So that'll even out it by the end of the year. Adjustment. And then the water and sewer is showing. On the expense side, some of the key variances there is, in the general government side, we had the building symposium. There were some expenses associated with that. The strategic planning and the code of conduct. So we have the additional revenue up above, but then we have the additional expenses down here. So it kind of all, kind of comes out in the wash, so to speak. And on the accounting support side, originally we had not budgeted to have a full-time accounting manager. We were going to use external resources, but we've gone with our own accounting manager, and that's provided savings of about $90,000. So on the protective services side, again, those protection grants that I just talked about, we spent the money on the mobile EOC. We do have a grant that's come in for that, but it hadn't come in at the time these financials were prepared. So most of those costs are covered with that. We have savings on the TNRD building inspections because we haven't needed those, and we're still seeing if there's a relationship to be had with the TNRD for that service, and we'll know about that. We'll know more about that shortly. Planning services. Here's what we were talking about: the economic development officer, $50,000. That's not been spent, and then we also had a grant writer for $25,000. We're working on a solution for that right now. Remainder of the year and then into next year. On the public works side, we've got some additional expenses because we've got staff now and they need materials and supplies. They're doing some of the work. Now there will be insurance proceeds that will come that will cover some of those materials and some of those supplies. We don't really have enough details yet to know what that's going to look like. So I just noted that these costs will likely be covered. I just don't know how much and by when. On the water, we did have additional expenses just in our regular everyday operations related to lifting the boil water advisory, working on the algae bloom, a lot of water test results coming out of that, and hydrophobicity in the water samples and all those types of things. So that's just the nature of those expenses. That repeated at the top. So onto the sewer, the sewer is actually showing under budget on expenses because we haven't allocated a lot of staff there because the staff have been focused on the water side of things. So we take the salaries and we allocate them across based on the amount of time that they spend doing one. The fiscal expenses, that's just amortization, be reported at year end. So right now it looks like it's savings, but that'll catch up to us. And the special projects, we've got savings of $100,000 because we did have money in there for the OCP. Just onto the recovery funding, I summarized just kind of the 3 major grants that we've received on the recovery side. So the first one is the municipal affairs. 6.26 million that was received in 2022. So as of September 30th, we've spent about 4.962 of that. And those funds were really used, particularly in the beginning, for recovery staffing and contractors, With some of the initial cleanup expenses, when council meetings were held remotely, there was a lot of extra costs associated with that. So this grant covered those expenses. And then also we were able to buy a replacement fire truck and a snowplow out of this grant. And then the project managers on the recovery project were charged to this fund as well. So Colliers was paid out of here. We've been having regular reporting and discussions with municipal affairs on this grant kind of the whole way along. So they're very up to speed if we change a line item or need to reallocate it. We've got a great open discussion going with them, and they're very helpful on this. So the next one is the Emergency Management Climate Readiness, EMCR. This is the big one, right? The 18.4 plus the 5 that we often refer to as the 23.4 received in 2022. As of September 30th, we've spent 24,286. You notice that's more than 23.4. The reason is the insurance recovery proceeds that have been received as contributions to the debris removal gets offset against this. So it's not over. There's actually a little bit of money left there, and we still do have a few expenses in here related to some environmental reports and analysis and things that are just getting finished up. So, this grant was used for site cleanup and security, debris removal, remediation, environmental testing, and archaeological testing, and that's all that we put in here is those specific expenses. So. And then the final one is 3.4 million that was received in 2023 from, again, EMCR. This is the first payment out of the $21 million grant that the government announced, I think, back in 2022. As of September 30th, we've spent just over $1 million of that. And this is primarily for recovery staffing and contractors and kind of all associated expenses. These types of things used to come out of the 6.26 grant. Now they come out of this one. And I think that's it. And so we'll do another financial update after the fourth quarter. So that'll come in January of 2024.
Thank you. So now are there any questions, Diane, or comments?
I just,
Councillor McCann?
when I look through all of the reports, and thank you for making it so straightforward and easy to understand, I did miss the one piece that everyone asks about, and that is donations. And everyone always asks about donations. They always want to know how much money we have had donated to the village, and they always want to know how much we have spent and how it has been spent if it has. And so I realize that must not be practiced somehow, but I also realize that it's still a burning question for a lot of people, and that somehow it needs to be, perhaps in the final report, maybe it can be part of that, because it's certainly questions that are always asked.
So the reason why it doesn't show up here is because this is just really the transactions that have occurred this year.
Mhm.
And the donations were primarily all received in previous years.
Okay.
But having said that, if it was council's desire, I could prepare a report just on donations and bring that back for your information.
Could you just do that with, like, as part of the final report, like the year-end thing? Like, as an,
Is it just?
no, I just, that would be when I'd want to see it.
Okay. Okay.
I don't want to see it just random, like, but when we're going through everything is all totaled and totaled, and then there's this little side report that says, and by the way, this is the donation thing, this is how that all happened. For my mind, that works better. Like, I can just kind of look at all the numbers at the same time. That's just,
Absolutely.
yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other? So, yeah, we have a recommended motion to, I've got to find it on here now, to receive the financial report for information. Who would like to make that motion?
Okay.
Oh,
There you go.
Councillor Michelle, seconder. Lightfoot, all those in favor? Yeah, that carried. Perfect. Thank you. So we'll move on to item number 3, recovery manager. And we have a Recovery Rebuild Report. And Mike, are you doing this today?
I am.
Okay.
I have a slide presentation and fingers crossed all the slides work today. I think we test drove them. I think they work. So, so good. So title pages, we'll jump to the next one. That's so again, I know we go over this one with everyone, with some people, there's different people every week. Again, reminding, we're focusing on completing the site net remediation and archaeology, and then shifting on to utilities and services and housing. So that's sort of in that stage we're at right now, where our primary focus is. So you'll see us winding down some of the reporting there as we start to shift into other events. So next slide. So it's been both exciting and too exciting for the last 2 weeks. So zones 1 through 4 are largely complete. We're sort of tuning the cap and fill that's there. We're working with owners going back to see, are we too high, are we too low? Do we have to, are you putting topsoil? Do we need to move some stuff around? And so we're regularly, almost every day, we'll be on the site with an owner going over what we want to adjust there. We've successfully all over. And so that's been going well. Surprisingly, the rain on Monday actually really helped us. That heavy rain showed us where we're getting water pooling. So we're able to go back and say, okay, we're pooling here. We got to put some more here. We got to make certain, and we're also looking for some draining. We're getting some drainage issues around where the Pioneer Cemetery is. So we have to, okay, we got to shift some fill there. We don't want to cause some problems down there either. So it was actually quite helpful standing in the rain to actually watch where the water was going. We're now backfilling. When I wrote this, underway in zones 5 and 6, most of zones 5 and 6 between Main Street, including Fraser, and then to the bank have largely cap and fill. We're again now just grading and getting it the right way set up there. We've since Monday we shifted over into zones 5 and 6 east of Fraser. So you'll see us there. It's a little slower going because there's lots of hillsides. And then we have to spend a little more discussion with the owners there. So we had a couple of them go over to sites with them sometimes 2 or 3 times to make sure we're getting it right. We've got it here, and they come back and have a look at it and stuff. Those are really tricky. They're also hard to move equipment around. We can't put double trucks in there most of the time. We can do it for a little while, and then we just run out moving machinery from one level to the other level. That big roller is a little tricky. Doesn't want to go up the hill very fast, I have to tell you. So we're continuing to work there. We said work plan for zone 7 was projected to be October 24th. That will, if that does go ahead, it'll likely go ahead next week because of the next item. It says KHC, sorry, there's an error in there. It should say AEW. Walked off the site on October 12th over a concern about right of access or right of entry being available. Unfortunate circumstances. We still believe we had people's permission to go on and we had the right process in place. But when any trade or any consultant leaves a site, that opens the village and opens us up to potential liability, because there are damages to all your other contractors if we shut down there. So having been involved in a number of these cases, our primary job is make certain, while following the rules, we're also protecting the village's liability, which was finding ways to continue to go forward and what it would be considered safe and reasonable. So we identified alternate resources that were available. We didn't do any work until we had done that. We brought monitors on the site and then recommenced work on there. And we've been using that up till today. We're still using that the way we're handling it. There's still issues going back and forth, challenges on credentials. I can tell you our head monitor has a bachelor's degree in anthropology, bachelor's degree in environmental sciences, done the courses, worked on ancestral remains recovering, and I have very much confidence in her capacity. And I've seen amazing things that team has done. So they have my confidence. We consider we're continuing to proceed. Still in discussions we are still somewhat exposed ourselves by not having an archaeologist. And so we're working on ways to solve that. So where we are right now, you can see on this map, zones 1 to 4, you can see largely complete what you see in yellow. I had this map 2 weeks ago too, it was beautiful. You should have seen it. It was less yellow. So you see roughly from an aerial point where we are. Zone 5 and 6, the blue, that's sort of what we're working on right now. And zone 7 will go, is the last area, plus there's a zone 7 plus an unzoned one that will come next. It's very specific individual properties with very unique challenges to each of them. But from you see a volumetric point of view, we are well along to completion on this part of the project.
Mhm.
What do the boxes indicate?
Oh, they were like I can't tell you what they indicate. And I can tell you in camera what they indicate. So Richards, it's not a big secret, it's just that was the best map we had that had boxes, unfortunately, on some of them. The site overview taken from, I guess, near the top of the stairs. So you can sort of see because I've known there's some people who are remotely watching this and will watch this later. It's nice to see what it actually looks like. So you see today what the big difference is from literally 6 weeks ago.
Mhm.
I mean, so you see the area is largely cleared, largely leveled. There still will be ongoing work, tuning things over the next couple of weeks, but we're working hard and fast to recognize winter's on its way. We felt that today. We know it's -5. So if you notice and one thing if people notice piles of earth appearing, that's a way for us actually to deal with freeze up. Because we're able to pile it, it gets crusty on the outside, we peel that away and actually have dirt we can move on that. So if you actually see that happening, it's not because we're trying to stockpile, it's a way to manage some cold temperatures we've got as our strategy there. So if we have a look at the next slide, so going there, looking from down the stairs, you can see sort of basically zones 4 on the left, zone 5, yes, 5 on the right, where we proceeding, and you see some pooling, right? You see right there, roughly what that would be in Guy's property right beside. So you see some pooling, we've got to go in there and tune that a bit. Okay, next one, and then you see looking towards the post office with largely most of that area clear. So you can see most of the main part of town has actually been done.
Yeah.
So we're working up the banks and working, again, tuning and running bulldozers and running mowers to get everybody's lot just right. But, and that takes risk, because once we fill, the environmental parts are protected, the architectural parts are protected, there's a clear area fill over top of everything. Most of those lots now are ready to go. All of those ones you see filled have had their compaction tests, they passed the flying colors. It's some of the best fill I've ever seen. It just levels perfectly, it compacts perfectly. And that's why I think we're quite competitive. Getting that highways is always, they're trying to get it, everybody's trying to get this fill. So it's, we're trying to get there early with the trucks. So we're usually there about 6:30 in the morning trying to get the first load off LFN. So providing an amazing product there for us. So again, the rest of this is sort of, we continue to work on leaks and temporary repairs going on the site. There's been a couple this week. And they're a little tricky. We have to make certain we inform when we get a leak that we have to dig. There's a process we have to inform our branch and to make certain that everybody's aware that we're digging. It doesn't slow us down, but we have to make certain it's a step we follow. So next slide. Again, big thing is working with owners on preparing their sites, and it's and actually for me it's one of my favorite parts. Because you see people, you see them smile, and you see them placing their house, and you see them doing that. After 2 years, it's kind of neat to see that. Again, we're supporting the Pacific Can program. I won't go into a lot of detail on that other than in camera. Still proceeding positively. We hope to have some further news that we will be able to put out publicly over the next 2 or 3 weeks. And business commercial right now, our stage is, to backfill in those areas to getting those sites ready. So largely those, because they're in the main part of the downtown core, are ready now. And continued applications for federal funding that Dawn is working Diana on those. So that's our focus on that part of it. Yeah, I think that's all I have to sort of say on that one.
Great, perfect.
And we're good, and you can contact us if you like us, and if you don't, well, it's, it's been a challenging 2 weeks because of situation. Every day is this will soon pass. We will look back on this, but I think the village and recovery managers and all the people involved did the best we could in that, and we will make it smooth going forward.
Yeah, great report, Mike. Thank you for including the photos in there. I think you're right. People living far and wide will appreciate seeing those up-to-date photos. Are there any comments or questions for Mike about his report? Okay, so who will move to receive this report for information?
I'll move that the council receive the recovery rebuild report for information.
And seconder, Councillor Lightfoot, and all those in favor, carried. Now we'll move on to direct award for extreme excavating. Don Wong is online. He will be speaking to this.
Thank you, Mayor Denise. Hi, all. We'd like to recommend a direct award to Extreme Excavating to do a repair, a water main replacement on First between Main and Fraser. This is one of the works that we presented to council about a month ago as one of the major requirements that we'd like to do to keep the boil water advisory off and to hopefully remove the do not consume. We'd like to award this to Extreme Excavating because they're close by. They're doing work in Kanaka Bar. They're well qualified, and we'd like to get this done as winter is coming before spring in order to keep the boil water advisory off and to hopefully remove the do not consume. As well, in the spring, we don't want to interfere with the ferry that is going to come back online. For context, pricing and whether it's fair, the original estimate provided us by Urban Systems came in at actually 1.2 million. So even though this is a large direct award at just over 381,000, it's significant below that amount. Just one caveat, like everything that seems to happen when we've been doing water repairs, there's always some unknown. So seems like it's always 2 steps forward and 2 leaks back, but we'd like to move forward with this if council is okay with it.
Thank you, Don. So we have a recommended motion. Who would like to read the motion? Thank you, Michelle. Councillor Michelle.
I'll move that council approve a direct award contract to Extreme Excavating in the amount of $381,113.25 related to emergency water repairs as reprofiled in the Canada Community Building Fund Gas Tax Strategic Priorities Grant of $5 million.
Seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. And do we have any comments or questions for Dawn about this?
It's amazing how much it costs to fix the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So Dawn, I'm just going to ask the question, emergency. So you're saying that once this is fixed, we should be able to possibly take the boil advisory off of, is that what I heard you say?
Currently, the boil water advisory is off. It's a do not consume.
I do not
We'd like to take off. Yeah. I don't, just to manage expectations, we don't want to promise that because, well, just because.
Yeah, no, yeah, okay. Okay, and this is, yeah. Okay, nobody else has any comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor of this motion? And carried. Thank you. All right, Director of Development, zoning bylaw, parking requirements, and I think Berthe's on call here tonight.
Good evening, Your Worship. Yes, Birte, your urban planner for Lytton, or urban planning consultant for Lytton. Let's go with that. Tonight, we're asking you to endorse reviewing the parking regulations found in Schedule C of the current zoning bylaw. Specifically, we're asking you to direct us to proceed with an investigation of Ministry of Transportation requirements. Of course, any town within 800 meters of a numbered highway do have to follow some of their regulations. To survey best parking practices in adjacent similar sized communities and identify potential solutions for council's consideration. I'm available should you have any questions, and I thank you for considering the matter.
Great. We will put the motion forward first. Who would like to make that motion? McCann?
Sure, I'll move it.
Thank you. Oh, so you're moving, yes. The
Yes.
council directs staff to investigate this zoning bylaw. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Michelle. All right, so now comments or questions? Any comments or questions regarding this? Hearing.
I think that one of the things
Yeah.
that we want to ask staff to consider in revision of this bylaw is the size of the lots in town that are still small. The lot size has not changed since fire. The building size might, but the lot size hasn't. The access to parking and in the lane, on the street, the whole notion of paying for parking. Did people actually pay for parking before? Like, was this something that was done? Okay, so I'm going, I don't think we need to do that. So those are some of the things that came to me like right off that we could just not bother people's time with at all. And it's kind of, to me, it's like what has to be done and keep it as bare bones as possible, because we don't want to spend a lot of time having people chasing around about parking, in my opinion.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Lightfoot.
I just want to make a comment that over many years, parking was an issue in Lytton. At one time, each business had to have 6 or 8 parking spots. And the mayor of the day argued that in a village the size of Lytton, that just wasn't required. You drive once and you walk to 6 or 8 different stores. I think Lytton was able to push back on those parking bylaws at that time, and it didn't suffer. I look at places like the Legion that used to have big events. There was no on-site parking. The surrounding streets afforded enough space for everyone that participated to attend. Not every lot in a town is big enough to accommodate parking on their lot. It says that council may enforce those regulations. I would suggest that I personally would like to see as few regulations as possible.
Any other comments? I would agree. I think I would like to see it as simple and manageable as possible. You're absolutely right. Parking was not a major issue in Lytton prior, and it was pretty much all street parking. So yeah, I agree with you. All right. So no other comments?
I'll just
Thank you.
add
I've heard to keep it simple. KISS is the KISS principle, right?
Right, yes.
I look forward to hearing the Ministry of Transportation's rules, like what they could impose, but other than that, the rest, what's up to us, I prefer to be.
Thank you, great. Okay, so all those in favor?
Yeah.
And carried, thank you. So we'll move on to item number 8, which is bylaws. And this will be turned back over to Diane. Thank you.
Thank you once again. This item is to request council consider giving the first 3 readings to a 5-year financial plan. So, as you all know, we passed our 5-year financial plan back, I think it was May the 10th. I am now proposing an amendment to that 5-year plan. Council can amend that bylaw at any time. This bylaw amendment intends to bring into the 5-year financial plan the recovery expenditures, so and revenues. So at the time that we prepared it in May, those were not included. Primary reason being they don't affect the property taxes, and that's really what we were trying to finalize at that time was our property tax rates. And so now, after having gone through a few more months, we kind of got some information together that we thought was kind of able to be put into a bylaw. So there's still information coming in every day on the recovery side, but it's fairly. I wouldn't say accurate. That feels too certain. But I also took the opportunity to update the budget in relation to all the core operating revenue and expenditures as well for things that we know that have happened. And we already just talked about them in the financial update, so I'm not going to go through them all again. It's really the same list of items with a couple of exceptions that I will highlight. One is we did purchase a piece of land back in March, I believe it was, that wasn't originally in the budget. So I'm now adding that into the financial plan. And other than that, adjust some of those revenue and expenses for the items that we've already talked about. On the recovery side, because we had no revenue or expenditures in the budget, the changes are quite different. On the revenue side, the budget revenue that I'm adding in, 19 million, that's a combination of a number of different grants, and just it has a lot to do with the way that the accounting side of it works, where the grant money was received in prior years, but we're actually spending it this year. So you bring the revenue in this year. So that 19 million in revenue, 16 million in expenditures, and an additional 3 million going back into a recovery reserve. That money will then come back into our budget next year and get spent. That excess amount just kind of rolls forward every year. So I'll just leave it at that unless somebody has some specific questions about any of the information.
Okay, so we have a recommended motion to put forward. Councillor Lightfoot.
Move that council consider giving first 3 readings to the 5-year financial plan amendment bylaw number 741, 2023.
And a seconder.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. And now, are there any questions or comments for Diane? Councillor Lightfoot.
Just a comment that it's very reassuring to have more financial certainty, although I know that it's still not perfect, but getting closer to. Thank you. It's very reassuring.
And any others? No. So all those in favor of this motion and carried. So we'll move right down to verbal reports. So it's been quite the 2 weeks since our last council meeting. Day following the last meeting, I attended TNR board meeting as well as a committee of the whole meeting. So I spent 2 days in Kamloops there. And then, of course, last week, I supported the community residents from the village, as well as the residents from the surrounding area, with the 840-day rally, is what I've decided to call it. So when the next newsletter went out from through the village on the website and the Facebook page, I did submit a little message there And I'm just going to read a couple of sentences from it. I said, the rally was attended by approximately 125 people, as well as regional and national media. The organizers of this rally event need to be commended as they created the media event that they envisioned. And I can attest to that. I can't believe the number of calls I had for interviews the days before and the days following. But, you know, I also believe that because of that media and that rally, that we definitely caught the attention of the entire province, if not the entire country. Since the rally, I have been contacted not only for interviews, but I've had phone calls and emails from people all over BC just to share their support for Lytton. And I thought that was really good. So yeah, that was kind of the big event in the last couple of weeks. I've also just attended many other meetings with province, with just other groups, and of course, talking to residents. So I'm just going to call that my report. I'm going to turn it over to Councillor Toss.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. I'm going to keep it simple. As you've probably deducted, I've got a cold, so I was at the rally and I'm thanking staff as always. Thank you. But other than that, nothing to report. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. I went to a couple of coffee sessions at the Parish Hall, and I also participated in support of the residents' rally. One question came up this last week at the coffee thing was that council considers some way to support people through the variance process. So as people are looking for finding a way to do a variance on or whatever they're trying to do, that we look at how that we can support that process. So I'll just share that with the group and leave that there. The highlight of the last couple of weeks for me was the rally of residents on October 18th. I was impressed with the number of media in attendance, and the follow-up coverage as well. I expected it to be like a one-day thing, and I was really surprised that, holy smokes, we're in the news 2 days in a row. My goodness, that's pretty rare. So it was interesting that the media took it where they did, I thought. And I would like to thank you, Mayor O'Connor, for bearing the brunt of that, as always, and to the organizers as well for the way they handled that whole thing and for really caring about town the way they do. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you. Councillor Michelle.
I attended one of the mayor and council coffees, and then I attended the rally and a couple of meetings, but other than that, I don't have much to report. Thank you.
Councillor Lightfoot.
As with the rest of you, I attended the rally, and I found that quite supportive of those that were trying to move things ahead. As Councillor McCann pointed out, there were some questions about zoning and building bylaws, and I do think it would be, I'm not sure if it's on our website, it's accessible, but I think understanding the variance process would be helpful to have it up front so people can access that. I attended an NDIT meeting today, long meeting. They're talking about transportation grants and connectivity in the northern region in particular, but they're trying to, they've been given 75 million from the government to establish 550 kilometers of connectivity in the north and along highways that have no service. Just listening to the numbers is sort of mind-boggling because they say it's going to be really hard to accomplish that with that kind of 75 million sounds like a lot. It's you know, close to $250,000 per kilometer to get that kind of service in. So interesting times, and many of them were sharing that they were glad to get government support, federal support for the ranchers in the area that lost so much during the the wildfires this summer, and a bit of frustration was expressed in how it was being rolled out. We all recognize that next spring in that area, and probably in our area too, we need to be prepared for heavy rains and mudslides, just given the crisis that we're facing and the challenges ahead. So we all have our different challenges in different parts of the province and in the country. But I feel quite encouraged that the backfilling is proceeding, and building permits are being, I hear that we have one building permit that's moving forward, and several more that are looking at getting their houses established. So steady progress. It's good.
Thank you. Okay. Well, this brings us to the end of the open meeting, and we are now going to be moving into closed session. So thank you public for attending. I'm going to turn it back over to, I guess we need a motion to move into closed meetings. So, who would like to make this motion? Councillor Toss, and seconder.
There you go.
Yeah, Councillor Michelle, all those in favor? Great, thank you. So we will do that. So I'm going to turn it back over to our corporate officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. That concludes the public portion of the regular council meeting of October 25th. So for the members of the public, we thank you for attending today's meeting, and you may now leave. Give them a few more minutes.
Your Worship, it's Shannon here. Before I leave, I'm not going to stay for the close because you're in good hands with Lisa, but I did wanted to mention that often tonight you were all really blurry.
Shannon, we have one public still. Now we can, yeah, we're good now.
Yeah,
But
it's
it's still
okay.
live.
It's thanks. It's
It's
nothing. It's nothing
recording.
secret.